Hi Aries, welcome to your September 2018 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So Aries, this is a very practical month for you in many ways because as we begin September, you have the sun in your 6th house, which is a very business-like kind of place for the sun to be, and therefore all your attention being poured into this area. The 6th house is ruled by Virgo in the universal chart, and you follow the universal chart since you're the first sign. And so it's the house of the workplace, your daily routine. So if you work from home, your schedule, and it's also the house of health. And so one or more of these areas may be on your mind during this time, especially when Mercury enters here on the 5th, and Mercury will get your organizing traits really revved up, and you may be like writing things down and trying to figure out a way to make the most of each day, especially if you are working from home. But even those people that have an outside job that you go to, you still may realize that there are other hours in the day that you could be using to do something productive. And you might be trying to reschedule your life to kind of conform to new plans. This can also involve some sort of contracts, Mercury. So this may be if you're starting a new job or you're signing something or filling out an application, that could be what's happening as well. Thankfully, Mercury is now direct, as it went direct in August, and it's coming back up to speed. And so everything that you sign should be have a lot better chance of not experiencing some kind of a snafu. So basically, for the first 5 days of the month, Mercury is in the 5th house, which is a romantic sector. It's also the house of creativity. So if you're somebody who's a writer, Aries, and you're into fiction or something along those lines, this may be a productive time for you in that sense. Or if you have a love interest, you may be somehow communicating in other than verbal ways. Maybe you're writing. Of course, Mercury can be talking, and perhaps you're communicating more than ever if the other person is far away. But I was also thinking in terms of love letters and things that are like the written word. On the 9th, we have 2 significant transits. We have Venus going into Scorpio, and this means the 8th house for you. And this Venus can bring money wherever she goes. And the 8th house is a money house. It's other people's money. So that could be good for receiving money for work that you didn't do. I mean, for things other than the work that you do, not for work that you didn't do, but for not having to work at all. And so it could be a gift. It could be some kind of investment dividend. It could be through a spouse or an inheritance. And on the same day, we have a new moon in Virgo, and this is in that work sector again. So there might be some Aries people who are starting a new job for sure. With Mercury in that 6th house and then the new moon there could be some kind of a contract for a new job. But Venus in the 8th house could also relate to if you are with somebody, they're getting a raise or something like that. As I said, it could be some kind of a will or the dividends from an investment, perhaps a gift, But Venus in the 8th house can also be about emotional intimacy or romantic intimacy. So if you and a partner are really deeply in love, and as I say, Venus goes into the 8th house on the 9th. So this means for the first 9 days, Venus is in the 7th house, which is the marriage house, the committed partnership house. This could be like newlyweds who are living together for the first time, or people who are moving in together who are really getting much closer. Because even if you have been dating somebody for 3 years and yet you keep separate residences, once you move in together, you are naturally thrown together into a more intimate situation. Even spending the night or spending a week together doesn't touch 24/7. So this could be a time for those of you who are coupled to really feel a deep soul connection with your partner. It can be very good for relationships. And Venus is harmony too. So it's not like, it's an intense house, but it's not necessarily something that has to be scary. So with that new moon on the same day in your work sector, could be a new job. It can also be a new health regimen that you're employing. And then the next day on the 10th, Mars goes into Aquarius. If you remember back in late June, Mars retrograded in Aquarius, and now it's back in its own sign. And therefore, for the first 10 days of the month, it's in Capricorn, the sign that it went back to when it retrograded. And that's your 10th house of career. And then it goes to that 11th house of hopes and wishes. I want to say a few words about Mars being in the 10th house, though, Aries. This is very significant for you because when Mars was retrograding here in the summer, well, Northern Hemisphere, I should say, you may have felt some sort of obstacles, blockages when it came to trying to accomplish something in your career. You may have felt it come to a grinding halt, or that there were a lot of hurdles, or maybe that you just didn't have the momentum and now it's full steam ahead. However, who knows? Maybe you've changed and all of a sudden you don't want the same things, because remember that you also have Saturn here. And by the way, I didn't mention this and I should have. Saturn goes direct on the 6th in this house as well. This is a loaded house of transits for Aries. And this can work to your advantage, but it can also be very challenging when you're trying to accomplish things, because when Saturn was retrograding, and that was since April, so you may have been feeling a slowdown as early as April, you just might not have had the same ambition. You might not have had the same drive or the energy levels. Well, you will start to feel more like your old self. And the typical Aries person is very competitive and ambitious. So having Mars direct in Capricorn in that 10th house, and then Saturn direct here, and then let's not forget Pluto, is just like absolutely amazing, because all three of these planets are not warm and fuzzy, you know. Saturn is the lord of karma. Pluto has a karmic connection too, but it's a planet of transformation, but it's not an easy transformation. It's a purging before, like a purification before, the transformation. And if you think about physical purging, people puking all over the place and then they feel better. But that puking experience isn't very pleasant, okay? Maybe that's not a good analogy, but it's the best I can do for now. Saturn can be a restrictive and stern type of, taskmaster, very like a disciplinarian type of an energy. And then we have Mars, and Mars is your get up and go, but it also can be very aggressive. It's the god of war. So sometimes when you have Mars in the 10th house, it's like you're just like so ambitious that you irritate people because you're kind of running roughshod over them. But with these other planets there, with Saturn there, you might not really have the ability to do everything that you want to do. You have to kind of work within certain parameters. But I think overall that this is a very powerful situation to have these three heavy hitters all in your career sector. And then, as I said, on the 10th, you have Mars going into Aquarius, the sign it was in when it retrograded. So it's kind of retracing that old ground in the 11th house, and you will be pursuing situations involving maybe some kind of networking with a lot of aggression. It could have a connection to your work if that's apropos to your situation, but there may be some long-held dream of yours that you finally decide you're going for it. You're not going to put it off any longer. With Mars retrograding in this house, you may have shelved some dream that you had, plans to accomplish, and now you're like, nope, that's it. And it doesn't have to relate to career. This could be something entirely different. Maybe it's a move to a different country or a different part of your country, and it's a big undertaking. It's a radical change, and you might have not felt like that was the right move a few months ago, but now you're like full steam ahead with that. Watch out for getting into arguments with friends, because this is another aggressive energy in this friendship sector. And that can lead, whenever Mars is in a house, that could also lead to conflict too. On the 21st, Mercury goes into Libra, and this is your opposite sign, and the 7th house is the house of committed partnership. Now, Mercury in Libra is a very harmonizing influence for communications. And in the 7th house, it's wonderful for anything having to do with, for instance, wedding plans. Maybe you're having to sign some kind of contract for a venue, or sign a wedding, maybe the actual marriage, what do they call it? Marriage document? Marriage license. Or is it marriage certificate? Yeah. I wouldn't know about those, so I'll leave it up to you. But yeah, that could be what's happening if some of you are getting into that. Because as I said, Venus has been in this 7th house. And Venus has gone on to the 8th house, so it's really about digging deep with a partner. And who knows, maybe this is connected to some kind of wedding plans with this Mercury in this house of marriage. And it can be also something to do with communication with clients. So again, with Mars in the house of groups and Mercury in the going into 7th house, there could be interactions with one-on-one associations, including clients, that is heightened at this time. The next day, the sun goes into this 7th house, the sun in Libra, just like at the time when the sun goes into your sign, Aries. We're looking at the 4 seasons, the time of cardinal signs. And Libra is a cardinal sign, and in the northern hemisphere, this is the beginning of autumn. The southern hemisphere, the beginning of spring. And so, great transition. And for you, it's the house of committed partnership. The sun here, everything positive, healing, romance, prosperity, success. 2 days later, on the 24th, there's a full moon in your sign, Aries. So are you leaving something behind? Are you transforming yourself, not only with your career, but just basic qualities within yourself? You certainly seem to have a lot going on here, especially when it relates to a significant other, but it looks like you're also changing in the process, so that's very interesting. Okay, well, that's what I have for you for September, Aries. If you'd like a natal chart interpretation where I look at your personal attributes, and this is also some of your planets in various houses, because you have to remember that this is a general reading. And actually, I didn't mention this, but the full moon is at 1 degree of Aries. So that's at a very early degree. And for a lot of Aries people, let's say your sun sign is 17 degrees of Aries. That means that 1 degree is in the 12th house. So for most Aries people, going by this particular degree of the full moon, that full moon is actually falling in the 12th house and not the 1st. The only reason that I characterize it other than that is because I'm trying to keep it general. But the 1 degree mark means that most people that are Aries are going to see it in the last house, not the 1st house. And it even gets more complicated than that when you get into all this other stuff that's happening here. So a personal reading, I look at the trends in different areas of your life astrologically for the next 12 months, plus personal analysis. And I also just offer the astrological transits by themselves. So you can check me out. I've got a link to both of those readings below this video. And wish you the best in the coming month. Take care. Bye.